good morning. Keith Hayes from Lewis in East Sussex. I've already been on with my little rant this morning, getting very excited about the way that we are navel-gazing while the evil empire sits at the gates. Evil empire, nothing. They're lovely, lovely people, the Russians. It's really the question of their leadership. And isn't it a question of ours as well? Isn't that what's happening around the world? Aren't we, the people, beginning to question leadership? And it's funny, but somehow it is those people who are fat and sassy that tend to say, why are you bothering? Why are you worrying about these things? They're not going to happen. Well, that's probably because it's never happened in their lifetime. But what I find quite astonishing is that the analysts and the commentators are saying in Canada that the truckers' protest, which started with a small minority group and which has grown, is now really a protest against freedom and the imposing of emergency powers by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to curb their activities and to curb their freedoms. And believe me, these are ordinary people. They're not radicals. They are people who have become increasingly concerned what they say and what they do, and that the government is trying to cut it down. And we had similar legislation ourselves put before Parliament last week. On the surface, it looks as if it's aimed at hate speech. Yes, it is. And that is needed. But this legislation it's like nobody quite understands the Data Protection Act. It can be lifted by various authorities just whenever they feel like it. For instance, I didn't know, and only found out during lockdown, that if the local district council wishes to take a look into your bank account, it can do so under emergency powers with the under the Data Protection Act. So something that was set out to protect us has actually turned into a monster. It stops people helping other people. You got a friend in trouble? Try phoning a hospital. Try phoning a doctor. Oh, because of the Data Protection Act, they can't tell you. No, I'm so sorry, but my friend may be dying and need help, and there's nobody else to help. Tough. This whole thing has got out of hand. And so it is time, I think, for civilized people to think in terms of being rebels. Not a rebellion, not trying to overthrow the government, but at least trying to say, will you please take notice of some of the things that concern us and include these in your deliberations instead of sitting in a bubble in Westminster or in Ottawa or in Washington and doing just what the hell you please because you are so out of touch with what's going on. That's really the key issue. Now, I hope that Andrew Sloane is going to join me this morning because he actually keeps me in check when I go off on like this. But first of all, let's just make sure that when we start our programs that we don't get too serious. And have you tried your... I've had my hot buttered toast. I have it at about 5:30 in the morning, believe it or not. I start my research then to see what's going on in the world. And it is a nice little hot buttered toast and a cup of coffee, or sometimes a cup of hot chocolate if I don't want to get the nerve ends stirred by the stuffed caffeine. I have a hot chocolate with my hot buttered toast. But anyway, the important thing is that we don't get too excited about anything. This is what we should be doing,
doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
go. There we go, there we go, there we go. So, have your hot buttered toast and then consider being busy doing nothing. It's a great way to spend a day. Anyway, let us now get on with our business and take you through for another half hour or so on what the newspapers are saying and what's valid and what's not. But first of all, there is a weather warning out for our area today and for the country generally. We can expect gales. The north is actually getting hit much worse than the south. And I have to say that here it is going to hit 12 degrees and we're going to have sunny intervals and a moderate breeze. However, the warning is that those breezes could turn into pretty fierce hammerings. The gusts could get very, very harsh, very fierce. So if you're anywhere near the sea, for instance, or you're deciding that a walk along the cliffs might be a good thing this morning, is be careful. Be very, very careful, because what you will find is that it may spring up at any time. How about rain? There's a chance around midday of rain. It's not high. It's about, let's see. Well, yes, about 10 o'clock this morning. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock this morning, about an hour's time. Yeah, we could see some rain. There's a good chance of it. It's not raining at the moment. In fact, the sky is clear. But the wind, the breeze has started. I can see my famous trees waving there. So we are in for a little bit of weather that we perhaps don't want. Right you are. And Andrew, I expect, is walking his beautiful little dog, Bella, and will join us in a few minutes. And in the meantime, let us take a look at the newspaper headlines. Because the thing that is disturbing me is the papers. I like to say our slogan for this television station is local, not parochial. But we seem to be getting very parochial as a nation and looking at all sorts of things when, in fact, we have very serious problems to be considered, to be thought. You know, I don't know why, but I can never keep my glasses clear. I don't know whether it's because I've got a bit of a cataract that still needs to be removed, or whether it's just that I'm incapable of keeping them free from grit and dirt. There we are, that will help just for a minute or two. But the newspaper headlines is Cash for Honours probe deepens the crisis for the royals. Well, yes, it's another royal scandal. Andrew has just more or less said, I'm not prepared to wash the Queen's dirty linen in public, and it isn't really the Queen's, but any time that one of her family step out of line, we immediately, and particularly the anti-royalists, get onto the bandwagon and say, oh gosh, it's the Queen's this and the Queen's that. She is our head of state of a constitutional monarchy, and don't forget that. Do not forget that. And Republicans, or anybody else for that matter, who thinks they have a better system, let them come forward with it. Because this system was tested by the ancients, by Plato and Socrates. A constitutional monarchy with an oligarchy, the House of Lords, and a democracy, the House of Commons, and fail-safes. The Chief of the Armed Forces is the head of state. The Chief of the Judiciary is quite independent. We have a wonderful, wonderful system. Bit complex, bit complicated. We don't have a proper constitution, the way that a fully written constitution, the way that other countries do, and yet it works for us. And it's those expandables that make it a land of free thinking, of free movement, of free speech. And every time we turn around, there is a new generation who are presently sitting in the House of Commons. A lot of them, not worth tuppence in my view, but still, there we go, that's just my view. Sitting there, trying to erode our freedoms because they have got the taste of power. Well, I'll tell you, if you're not careful, you're going to have that power cut down at the knees because you're taking your eye off the ball. There is a serious, serious possibility of war. And I know what's going to happen is if Putin puts his foot over the border, then there will be all sorts of apologists who will say, well, we'll let him do this, we'll let him do that. We do not learn from history, do we? No. We don't have a plan B. No. We've gone and stamped our little feet. We'll throw sanctions at you. To which a military power says, well, throw sanctions, I don't care. I may be running your sanctions with my bristling rockets if you keep on this way. It's all a bunch of nonsense, and it's a dreadful thing. There we go. So the Metro says, plutonium jubilee, another royal scandal. They're not a particularly good lot, this family. They're a bit dysfunctional. But perhaps that is the price that one has to pay if you are busy as a parent and not able to look after your children yourself directly. The Queen is undoubtedly a loving mother, but from the age of what was she in 1952? I think she was only 30 or less than that. She wasn't even 30, was she? And she suddenly found herself as the leader, if you like, in any other country, a president of the country. She was the Queen. She was the head of state. No wonder that she took a lot of time to find her feet and to become the leader that she has become. I'm very sympathetic to that. I'm not sympathetic to the antics of offspring. But then again, much as I may dislike it and find it distasteful, and much as other people find it distasteful, then indeed what we are experiencing is unfortunately something that we can all gossip about, that we can always all feel, well, my family may not be perfect, but theirs is just awful, isn't it? Oh, look, tut, 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 tut. And instead of talking about Mrs. Jones next door, let's talk about the royal family. Well, that's all well and good, but let's stop navel gazing, and let's get stuck in to the terrors and the problems of the world. Not only war, but inflation. And we've got a whole generation who have no idea what inflation is. And I'm sure that you're finding out at the supermarket. I haven't been this past week yet. But when I do, I quite expect to see something that was £1 last week at something like £1.20, possibly even £1.50 this week. And a lot of them, a lot of items as well. Heating my home is suddenly going to cost me about 25% more. I've got to pay for that from somewhere. And I don't notice that the revenue figures, my revenue figures, are going up that much. I'm going to have to work 10 times harder. Our mental health situation is we keep on hearing the mental health experts and the mental health charities wringing their hands and saying, oh my goodness me, it's on the increase, and children are becoming stressed because of lockdown and so on. Undoubtedly that is very true, but I don't see a great deal of change. We still lock people up. We still have mental homes, if you like, mental institutions, which we're not supposed to call that. We've all got all sorts of things going. But, if we don't pay attention to it, it'll just get worse. And the homeless situation is disgraceful. And now we're told, and I sometimes don't believe all the statistics, that we've got starving children in Britain, children who can't afford to be fed, and that if they have to pay for school meals, they won't get any meal at all. What a tragic state of affairs, but nonetheless, we've got to address it. Just paying for their school dinners doesn't get us anywhere. So those are the sort of things that I can't understand why we're not paying attention to, instead of getting on the back of the Queen and the royal family, the Metro Plutonium Jubilee. What they're saying is it's going to be a toxic Jubilee year for the Queen, where she's celebrating 75 years of reign. And what's happening is all sorts of hijinks from various members of her family are getting in the way. Well, let's remember those who actually do perform duty, who do believe in duty, other than the Queen herself. Well, certainly Prince Philip did. Princess Anne does. Charles tries his best, although it looks as if he might get swept up in this one. And all in all, we do have people who in the royal family, they've got a sense of duty. Now, Andrew is with me, so as I rant and rave, he can soon say, "Calm down, Keith, calm down. Don't get carried away. Good morning, Andrew."
Hi, Keith, you all right?
Yes, I'm having a great time yelling and screaming and stabbing my little feet here as we go through the papers. And what I'm saying is that, it's easy to attack the royal family as the royal family, but the Queen is our head of state. She's the president, if you like. In any other country, she might well be called a president or an emperor or whatever. But she is our head of state, and as a constitutional monarchy, we should actually respect that, instead of attacking everything to do with the royal family, just at a time when we've got a lot of crises in the world. And I said, the moment you got on, you will sadly cut my feet out from under me and have a go and tell me I'm an old fart.
Oh,
Is that my girlfriend?
that is. Give me 1 second. I think a cat is coming to the garden. Hello. Come here. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come on. There you go. Good girl. Where's Keith? Up here. Good girl. Where? Oh, there she is. Oh, God. Barky.
Good morning, Bella.
Oh.
Good morning, Bella.
She's, I think, look, a squirrel or a fox or something up in the garden.
Is she going to work with you today?
She's not. No, she's not. She's staying at home with the other half today. It's working from home. So
Right.
she's we had to go down to Cornwall the weekend. So she was with Nick, our dog, for the weekend. We were on holiday. So obviously she's been out for loads of walks. So she's absolutely shattered at the moment. But yeah. So the Queen, it's embarrassing, isn't it? All this bad media and social media. They're sort of out for the Met Police. They're out for sort of the Queen or royal family, and like you said, there is an element of countries have presidents and emperors, etc. So heads of state, and there should be some sort of respect there, shouldn't there? Really,
Yes.
And a bit more privacy, things like this. I don't think it's good for the royal family to engage in interviews and things anyway. Really,
No.
It's like
I
that.
don't. I don't say that they shouldn't be brought to book, because the latest is that they've been selling honours to Saudi princes for cash. In other words, if you want to become an English lord, sir, just pay me some cash and I'll pave the way. That is naughty behaviour. But with everything else that's going on around, I don't understand as a nation why we keep on wanting to gossip about these things. Yes, put them into the right appropriate
channels.
That's right, and deal with it. But don't make a meal out of it.
Why does everything have to be? What my mum used to say, washing your dirty laundry in public or something. It's there's certain things that people should know and shouldn't know, and this whole public interest thing. I just think things like that just put through all the channels, and 100% agree with you.
I mean, actually, we are very lucky in many ways because apparently Canada is. I was in Canada at the time of the present Prime Minister's father, Pierre Trudeau, who at one stage invoked martial law. Now, martial law is a very, very serious step to take because basically what it does is suspends all civil liberties and makes any citizen subject to military rule. So somebody can lift you from the road without any excuse, put you into prison, hold you there without habeas corpus, without any sort of the usual freedoms and rights that we would expect, and there you are, and you've got no comeback. And his son has now invoked emergency powers. I'm going to find out later today what those emergency powers are. But you see, they seem to have a knee-jerk reaction when things don't go their way. And here, I have to say, that perhaps gossip is not a bad thing, because we talk about it in the coffee shops as if it's going to be the end of the earth. But in fact, what we're doing is we're simply gossiping. The way that I'm quite sure that in your shop, you sometimes hear people come in with gossip, and you must stand there, being the absolute gentleman that you are, and say, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, and think, what a prat.
Men generally don't gossip, generally. You know, they're quite easygoing, aren't they? They're quite sort of straightforward.
You're entering dicey ground now. I love it. Yeah.
No, men don't gossip.
If we can upset people, that's what it's all about. That's what we need to get them talking about. However, give the Sun it credit. It says, thank God for the Queen. You know, while her children and her family are doing naughty things, whether it's Andrew, whether it's Charles, or whatever, she remains very calm and very dignified, and carries on as head of state, as a head of state should carry on. So the Sun is on her side.
Yeah. It's I mean, well, the Sun is. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Sun, shall we say? But yeah, they're right in this instance. You know.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I think that the family behaved abominably. What my point is you know, what can we do about it at this particular stage, except tut, and hope that they'll be brought to book. But you know, every day the Russian situation in Ukraine gets more and more tense. Our allies are telling us that their intelligence says that this backing off of President Putin is really a feint before he actually delivers a sucker punch when he thinks that he's got everybody, you know, thinking that he's not going to do it. I mean, if I was our politicians, I would be on tenterhooks, wondering what the hell he's going to do next.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people in the shop the last sort of few days are all saying people aren't really watching the news. They're all we're all waiting for, I suppose, the spring to come. And people are just tired of being consumed by all the negativity, I think. It's been quite intense for a while, isn't it? And the fact that, you know, with Andrew and his payoff, the amount of money, you know, that it's a payoff, and like I always bang on about, you know, the fact that people are using food banks and everything's costing us a fortune. And meanwhile, there seems to be loads of money being spent everywhere. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are just, not really sort of engaging, really. I think people are just more concerned with just keeping their mental health at a bit of a lower key at the moment, because it's all doing too much, and we're nearly at the end now, I think. So, you know, we need some positivity. So, you know, I think that's the thing. I've definitely stopped watching the news the last couple of days. Definitely.
It can be depressing. I agree with you. I have to.
This is it. You know.
That's
it's
why
a really interesting thing.
A fine touch of madness.
Yeah, you know, to try and still keep an ear on what's happening, but try not to let it consume. You know, it's quite tricky. It's quite tricky.
I hope that you will treat me with due deference when I become Lord Keith of Southover. I'm going to send my cheque off to the palace today with a request that I can be made a lord next week.
It's mad, isn't it?
Right, now I actually, for one reason or another, not to bore everybody why, have not ventured too far from my abode for the first 4 days of this week. I'm coming into town this morning at some stage, and I will pop in to see, Bella's not going to be there, but I'll pop in to have a little chat, as I often do. But what's been happening in Lewis and the world that has caught your attention, that you think that we should pay attention to ourselves?
Well, it's just that, I think, that like people are talking about people are really concerned, obviously, about the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. So it's whether people are going to stop stockpiling again, and obviously there's the cost of things. That seems to be the main topic at the moment. They're looking forward to just COVID and restrictions finishing and try and get back some sort of normality, really, some confidence. That seems to be the sort of general chat, really, at the moment.
Is there panic buying in the stores?
No, I don't think so, because people are. I don't know. I presume people are sensible. Whenever anybody, to social media or anything puts anything out, then that will create that, isn't it? It's quite obvious that's what the thing is. But so hopefully that type of stuff won't be put out in the media. But no, it's just I think people are concerned just about the costs of everything, really, and everyone's. What actually was one topic that everybody kept talking about with that was of how people realise it's everyday folk, you and us that are now looking at the price of stuff. It's not just a case of it's luxuries or people on very, very low income or on the breadline, to quote some people, or people on benefits. It's everybody as well. It's really affecting us all. And it's obviously energy's going up again in April and then again in October. So people are sort of thinking more. People are sort of staying in more and looking for the deals and cooking stuff. So people are definitely starting to think about things differently because it's affecting them. It's not just others now,
Yeah. One of the things that I think is interesting is that those people that aren't worried about it and don't change their lives are those people that are working for the state, so-called our servants, who make sure that they get their check at the end of every month. There is never any worry about whether they're going to lose their jobs and so on and so forth. It's easy, isn't it, to govern, if you like, from that position, as opposed to the position that, as you say, most people find themselves in at the moment and feeling quite insecure.
Yeah, that's definitely when people talk about the pandemic, or that if they were working from home, so they had kids, they didn't have to commute anymore, and they still getting paid. There is a real difference with those people, that attitude, compared to a lot of people who, obviously down in this neck of the woods, there's a lot of people who work in creative fields or are self-employed or, very different jobs. We've got artists that come in with builders, scaffolders, electricians, various people who, landscape gardeners, all that type of stuff. So it's affecting a wide range of people, and there is a difference with how they view it all, with people who are just, say, working for a council or a job where they're just getting paid regardless. They can book their holidays, they're not worried about it, they can work from home. Whereas we know any sort of effect on people's behaviour, economy, affects people who are sort of self-employed. Because people can't afford to get repairs done on the house, or it's like my car, actually, my Mini, a lot of display screens is a bit faulty, but Mini said to me it's going to cost £170 just to have a look at it, and I thought, just to look at it, I haven't got that at the moment. Yeah. So there's that question. A couple of people have said things like this, like they're not using the overhead light in the kitchen or something because they can't afford to pay an electrician to come out and fix it at the moment, so they've got a plug-in lamp. So, that's just not normal people as well. So people are really being aware of what they're spending their money on. That seems to be the thing at the moment.
Right, now, I'm just going to play you a little something, just so in case we think that you and I, it applies to.
We're busy doing our thing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
Now, I put that together in one of my naughtier moments, but I have to confess that when I was working in the Balkans, we found that the EU people, and for that matter, to some extent, the United Nations people, were not of the very highest caliber. So we as a journalistic group, we used to sing that to them, get very annoyed, and chase us down the street. But to me, it seems to summon up a whole attitude of people who are laissez-faire at the moment. There are no problems; they'll all go away, and so on. I can be very cruel when I want to be, but.
But isn't it? Do you not think, Keith? So because you're quite social, you're very good that you interact with people and stuff, and I'm in a job where people are coming in, different types of people all the time. So we're talking to people in a sense. So people are that sense of community, or people are offloading. Whereas some people, I suppose, don't engage. I suppose maybe it's a bit of that, where I'm all about, I just think, all we've got is each other, isn't it? So it's that thing of people might not necessarily, everyone's got stuff going on in their lives, haven't they? So unless you sort of make effort with people even on a tiniest level, you can pick up on the fact that something's not quite right with them, or something's on their mind. So you can give them a window to say, "Are you okay? So everything all right?" And it just gives them the opportunity to go, actually, this, that, and the other, so they can chat. Unless you sort of engage people on a tiniest level, that opportunity where someone can open up or just, isn't there, is it?
No, you're absolutely right. What I don't understand is why people take a job where they need to engage with people and then don't.
I can't bear that. Oh my God.
Well,
What's
even
that
worse,
about?
I think, is that they substitute a computer for themselves.
Yeah.
And it really is. I actually put up a little story. I quite often, when I wake up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I'm feeling quite creative. So I will write a little story, which then puts me back to sleep. And I wrote one the other day about a notional person in a village who actually had the ATM taken away and the bank taken away and so on and so forth. And so they had to go to the local town. And when they got there, they found that the man there could only go to head office on his computer. And he swears that as he left, the computer growled at him, "What do you think this is, a bank?"
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I understand efficiency. I can understand all sorts of things in trying hard to become more and more efficient, but not at the cost, as you say, of social intercourse, because that is, as you very succinctly and very nicely put it, what else have we got except each other? And that is true of mankind, humankind, throughout the world.
It's the thing,
the
isn't it?
computer.
It's isolation, as we know, isn't good, and that's gone up through the roof, isn't it? Like during the pandemic and stuff, and mental health and stuff. There was something on the news the other day about the figures of older people who suffer with mental health issues now, because of being isolated and stuff over the pandemic. And then I know it's a bit lefty as well, but little things like people don't shake hands or hug or have that sort of interaction stuff, or people walking away from the street or turn away from the street. And I think that sends a very negative body language transaction to somebody, isn't it? When you walk down the street and someone's just sort of
as a
turn.
nation, we have got into the habit of it, haven't we?
I don't do that. So, yeah, but I do notice some people are still doing that once and twice, and almost walking into the road, which is more dangerous because there's a bus behind them.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's so are people doing it because they don't want to? The way I read it, which is probably the wrong way, is that people think that we're infected. You don't know who's infected. It's all that fear thing, isn't it? Or is it?
I think it's just habit. I think we've got into that habit. of seeing somebody coming towards you on the pavement, and if you're going to be very close to them, if you step off into the street, or they step off into the street.
I
And there's
smile
no
at
reason
people
for it
now.
anymore. Well, that's not quite true, but I mean, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. But there was other illnesses around before COVID. You know, so I think people need to remember that as well. There are other things, and the experts, loads of different experts as well. Like I've been listening to and stuff. We're almost at the end of it. So and it's a totally different thing now. So it's interact with people, be kinder. I mean, smile when you walk past them in the street. I think it's just the old thing I'm always wanging on about. Really, I think but yeah, we need a bit of positivity, don't we? So we need to connect with each other.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm just looking here at the various newspapers, and of course it was all Cash for Honours inquiry, the Royals crisis, and so on and so forth. But just this is just an intro to some of the things that we're doing. Now, I've already played a couple of programs that the way life was. First of all, in the 1940s, during the war. I don't really remember much about the war, but I do remember the years after it, 1945 to 50. And then, of course, the Queen came to the throne in 1952 when her father died, King George VI. So I've done another one, or I've done another two. One is just finished this morning, and will go out later today, of my life in the 1950s. But my wife, my late wife, Valerie, was a true blue Canadian. She was very, very proud of her heritage and of her country and her nation. But she was also a superb supporter of our life here. And in the last Jubilee, if you tried to get down Watergate Lane, you couldn't because of the bunting that she'd put up. The decorations were such you couldn't see anything in front of you because of all these little flags that my dear Canadian wife and Canadian family had decided we should do as a street gathering and so on. Now, there are only 3 families in Watergate Lane, so a street party wasn't exactly on, so we did have barbecues and so on. But Andrew, you have said, quite rightly, the little area that you're in is a lovely little area down Market Street. And I wonder whether you've given any thought, because I know that you're an innovator, to getting the other merchants in that little square, or that little strip of road, because it is unique and it is sort of set off. Whether you're going to put up bunting, and whether in fact you might ask if the road can be closed just across the road so we can have a little street party.
100%. We've been talking about that because I can remember that. The Silver Jubilee, isn't it? And
Yes.
We did that all the street party when the kids were out and stuff. And I thought, Lewis being Lewis, it's sort of, isn't it the perfect town for something like that? Surely. And it'd be quite nice to sort of people to meet people and all the other businesses and the residents in that area. So it's that thing of thinking whether we approach the council and say, "Are you closing the streets off? Are you doing anything for the Jubilee?" Because it might be quite nice, mightn't it?
Yeah.
To sort of, because we were going to do it with a bonfire, but of course that's a different story. But I was going to sort of stay open and get loads of bits and bobs and a bit of a spread and tell the clients to pop in and stuff. So it might be quite nice. It's like just a little social thing, wouldn't it? Just
Yes, it'd
people
be nice
buzzing
to
around.
have a Jubilee celebration, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, just
you're young enough to look forward to other things in our life, but this is probably going to be the last big celebration that I will witness on this earth. And I would like to think that it's a good one and a fun one, and everybody is waving their hands and being kind to one another instead of all this navel gazing that we're going through at the moment. And this is going to be a bad year for the Queen. Screw it. Let's make it a good year, not only for the Queen but for ourselves, because as you well know, I'll have a party at the drop of a hat, and this is a damn good reason to have a party.
But I can remember us all as kids. You know, we were all given our little Union Jack flags and did all that. And I can remember when the Queen came to Plymouth, where I grew up. You know, and we all waited there and everything's good. And you see all those images, don't you, from footage from years ago, and the Queen goes to visit various places, and all everyone's out with their flags. But I'm sure there'll be words from other people going, "Well, it's." Waving the flag might be seen as a negative thing, and the empire and all that business, you know, rather than, no, it's all about us as a nation now, isn't it? And the uniqueness of being British and stuff, and celebrating the fact that, you know, it is, you know, what's the word? I was going to say melting pot, that's awful. A big mix of people, isn't it? That's the whole idea with the Union Jack, the Union flag, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That it's everybody coming together.
Yeah.
So that's what we should celebrate. That us is a union, you know, in a small way, in a country, in a world, in a country, in a city, Lewis, in a community, isn't it? We're all coming together. That's what it means. So
you mentioning Plymouth, and also earlier you mentioned that you're going down to Cornwall this weekend, and I'd forgotten that actually that's where you were raised. You went down last weekend, did you?
Yeah.
Ah, right. But I just included in my latest little program about the 1950s a picture of the Cornish Express, the steam train.
Oh,
yeah. And also, I think it's a scene of Polzeth.
Oh, Polzeth.
Because when I was about 16, I would think, I went down to Cornwall for the first time. Stayed in Saltash, which is just across a King of Brunel bridge, as you well know, from Plymouth, and had a wonderful, wonderful time and saw around Cornwall, and then went back on this magnificent steam train. And you really can't. It's a fantastic place to have a holiday. So the 1950s, long before you were even a sparkle in your father's eye, I was sampling the wonders of Plymouth and Cornwall, and I just wish that I could get back there and see some of the old stomping grounds. But there are so many places in the world that I'd like to go back to. My bucket list is so long, I would never fulfill it. But isn't it? I think that memories of some of the things that we had in the years when the Queen came to the throne, they were tough years. They were harsh years, and a lot of people overseas didn't understand that. I can remember one Canadian pilot saying to me, he was in the Air Force and had been listening to his neighbours complaining that they had their sugar ration cut during the war, and he couldn't restrain himself and said, well, you should have tried getting some flack up your backside and you'd understand what it was all about.
Well, rationing, you know, the whole war thing with rationing, you know, it's almost, you know, the cost of things are coming up now, that's sort of happening, isn't it? I wonder how people now would respond to that and saying, no, this is it, you know.
But we didn't know that we were suffering, you see. We didn't know that we were limited. Our grandparents, particularly, who were looking after us during the war because our parents were off at war, they were very innovative about how they could cook in a kitchen. There was no... I can remember once as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old boy, taking my pocket money and buying a packet of frozen bird's eye peas. Simply because I had never seen anything like it before, ever in my life. And I wanted a packet of these bird's eye peas. I don't know that I ever even ate them, but I just had that desire to get something that was a wonder to me.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
Frozen food.
we throw half the bloody packet away. It's sad, really, but also it was a wonderful time. And I sound like a real prick, I suppose, talking about these times as if they were marvellous. They were very, very difficult, and particularly during the war years, of course, dangerous. But I sometimes think that if we can just put it in perspective, instead of listening to the wokes and rabbiting on about this, that, and the other that is of no consequence whatsoever, we've lost the lessons.
Yeah. Well, this is it. There's so much. People can just buy things or get things now with a drop of a hat, can't they? With a click. So you can get anything you want, any type of food, any time of the day, basically now as well, can't you? So to suddenly go to that and to say, well, no, this is the amount of money, this is the amount of food, you've got to plan your food for the week. This is it, and
Yeah, you're actually, I think, a bit of a chef yourself, aren't you? You enjoy cooking.
I love cooking, yeah. So we do a thing where I'll write a list of sort of meals and try and make, because we use a lot of corn, vegetarian stuff. So supermarkets can do like 3 products for £4 sort of thing. So it works out quite cheap, So it's that thing of trying to vary it, right? If I have rice one night, if I have pasta another night, spaghetti another night, a potato-based something the other night. And then if you do a roast, that will last a couple of days, as well, a couple of stuff. Yeah, I definitely try and make it interesting, but as cheap as possible. But proper meals, that's the thing, And then you go, that's for tea tonight, that's for tea tomorrow, sorted.
What I find difficult is that being on my own is if there was somebody else here that I was cooking for, then I think that I would quite enjoy it. But cooking for yourself isn't any fun, and that's where the convenience side comes in. But I watch these movies, particularly these American movies, particularly the schmaltzy ones, where you know that the hero and heroine are going to fall in love towards the end, and they go back to their apartments and so on, and they very gaily go about making a meal for themselves, even though they're on their own, and look as if they're thoroughly enjoying being on their own and so on. Of course, I enjoy being on my own once in a while, but not all the time. And I think that's one of the problems of the elderly that you've mentioned that are having problems, is they are on their own and they haven't got people to do things for, because our families have been disseminated, if you like, if that's the right word. When I grew up as a little boy, I had all sorts of great aunts and grandparents and so on coming out of my ears. And we all lived within, 5 miles of each other, and probably within 3. Now, my own family, my daughter is in Belfast, my grandsons are in Newcastle and Bristol. We become a mobile society. And actually, in some ways, the relatives that are closest to me are the people in Canada.
We create our own family now, don't we?
Yes, we do. Now we have to, I think. Yeah.
That's you've got to reach out sometimes, and then sometimes you do the inviting rather than wait to be invited. So you can say, "Oh, do you fancy doing blah 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 on Sunday?" Or "Do you fancy going to do a pub quiz tomorrow night?" Or "Do you fancy going to cinema?" Yeah. People have to. You've got to make the effort, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which is hard sometimes.
Blood is thicker than water, but for instance, you can't see it this morning, but some mornings when I'm here, you can see the pictures on the wall, and this is still a work in progress, this little apartment of mine, but nice furniture and so on and so forth. And there's a lady called Janet Evans, who is the husband of a wife of a friend of mine, and she takes time to come down, and she'll just phone and say, "Keith, I've got a new picture. I want to come down and I want to measure it up." Or "I found you a blind, to cover that window. I'm going to come down." And I think to some extent that sort of thing is beginning to replace family. And I'm very pleased that it does, because it brings a small group of people, at least, closer together.
Yeah. That's it. It's like I've a friend who come down from Glasgow and stayed when his dad became unwell, so stayed for a couple of days. But as I was still finishing work, he was meeting up with an old friend of his who lived down here in Brighton. So I went and picked him up and met him. And now his friend, we've sort of been out socially a few times and stuff, and been out for a roast dinner, like where I took you to the Bedford. And so that's quite nice, you know. But it's that thing. I'll ring him and go, "Are you in? I'll pop in for a cup of tea on the way home." Because I think you've got to invest, haven't you? You've got to make the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was. I'm a bit critical of the pubs in Lewes at the moment because they all seem to have the same menu, which consists of cod and chips and sausages, which they proudly say is from Richard's the Butcher, and rightly so. I mean, Richard's sausages are quite good, quite superior, but they seem to be very much of a muchness. And I was taken for an early dinner the other night to one of the pubs in Ringmer. And if you mention the name, I would know it, but I just can't think of it at the moment. But they had on liver casserole. Now, a lot of people would turn up their nose at the idea of a liver casserole, but it was delicious.
Yeah.
Absolutely delicious. The only thing I would say is that all these pubs now are used to having healthy young men come in, and they give you enough to feed an army. And I can only eat about half of it. But it is nice to think that we have got eating establishments, because we are very slim on restaurants. We don't have too many restaurants left anymore.
Yeah.
and they are catering to a different taste from time to time. Right, it is now, believe it or not, 8:53.
Yes.
Doesn't time fly when you're enjoying yourself? And I know that you've got to get down to the shop.
Yeah.
I probably, if it's all right with you, we'll drop by to see you for 5 minutes today.
Yeah.
At some stage. I haven't been into town. Need to be.
Yeah. I'm fully booked till about 2 o'clock. I think maybe.
No, but
yeah,
I'll just pop in to say hello.
But pop by, say hello, have a coffee. You know.
Yeah. I think we should tell everybody that his Andrew's shop, barber shop, is a social centre. All sorts of people drop in for 5 minutes, or even come and lean in through the window and have a chat. It is a most unusual barber shop, and if you'd like unusual, that's the place to go to. Grizzlies on Market Street. And don't hesitate. Well, you see, a lot of people are. He's booked up today. I actually got in early. I think I'm booked in with you tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, yeah.
Yes, I have to get in early because even as I know Andrew, he doesn't play any favourites. If I'm late or I haven't booked, he says, no, go away, let your hair grow. Well, good luck this morning with a full schedule. I may just pop in to say hi later in the day and say hello to your staff, because he's got a terrific staff, a really great bunch down there. And I'm not going to remind you, if you're in a privileged position, you might get a special coffee.
All right, Keith. Have a nice day, and I'll see you later.
And you too, and thanks for joining us as usual, Andrew. You take often the distaff side to me, and that's what debate is all about. You don't want to hear it just from one old fart like me. See you later.
See you later. Take care.
Toodles.
Bye.
Well, there we are. I'm still experimenting with this light. I don't understand quite why I'm as dark as I am, and I'll try and rectify that in the next couple of days. I know where I think I need a light now. Anyway, Andrew Sloane, and this morning, the weather. It's going to reach 12 degrees. It's about, at 9 o'clock, coming up to 9 o'clock. Yes, it's about 9 degrees at the moment. It's going to rise to 12 at about lunchtime. There is a chance of rain right now, and it doesn't look as if it has rained, so I think you may be all right, because it lessens as the day goes on. So that by the time we are talking about 2 o'clock this afternoon, it is down to 3%, so no chance at all. I don't think you've got to worry about that. A moderate breeze, but there is a weather warning in place, and that is that storms could pounce at any given moment. So do be careful. Do be careful. Right, there we go. a friend has just said he's home from work. He works overnight, so he will see the day in a different way to the rest of us, I suppose. So at 8:56, I am going to say toodle pip, but I'll just remind you of a couple of things before we go, and that is, when you wake up in the morning, don't be afraid of dining in elegance, because here is a forgotten delicacy. Okay, keep an eye open because there is one of my rants floating around this morning. By all means, take a listen and then get back to me, even if you want to feel like punching me on the nose for what I say. But it's not going to stop me from saying what I say, but I don't want it to stop you. My encouragement is for you to express your opinion. And if there are efforts by our government to try and suppress such activity, then we will be at the forefront of the fight. So, until tomorrow, although it may be that things will happen later today, particularly if Russia invades Ukraine, Keith Hayes, Mirador Television, toodle, 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 pip.